Chapter 21, The Developing World.
Question 1.
How did undeveloped countries develop in the late 1900s and early 2000s?
The developing world, nations working toward development in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, had many hurdles to jump over, such as traditional economy, poor economy, and the country's people not being very intelligent. Traditional economies are the economies of undeveloped countries that rely on customs and traditions. For the countries to develop, they would have to abandon this economy, which would cause them to abandon some old customs and traditions which no people would want to do. This made it difficult for countries to develop, but they overcame it. With people forgetting their old customs and traditions, people called fundamentalists came up trying to become political leaders and making sure their faith is not forgotten, and they would try to renew others' faith. With low capital, the countries need something to spark their economy to help develop. The Green Revolution raised farm output from large machines, which made it easier to plant crop and harvest it. The increased economies of the developing countries and made their economies stronger with a stable agricultural output. Also, many developing countries had to choose between two economies, socialism and capitalism. Socialism is a system as a whole with everyone owns property. Capitalism is a free market system with private ownership of property. Another thing developing countries did develop was to create more schools and raise the intelligence of their people. They tried to increase literacy, which is the ability to read and write. All of these things helped the developing countries in the world develop into more modern countries.
Question 2.
What were the causes of Latin America becoming impoverished, and what were some solutions?
From the 1950s to 1980s, Latin American countries were becoming greatly impoverished. Three causes were a large population growth, import substitution, and agribusiness. Population growth had a great strain on the peasant farmers because they usually only had small plots to grow food. As a result of only having small plots, they couldn't support the family because they would have to sell some crops in order to pay for necessities, like clothes, tools, and goods that they don't grow. As a result of the population growing and becoming impoverished, people began to build cheap houses in small areas with whatever they found. These towns with low standards of living became known as shanty towns. Latin American countries started to become more independent by importing less goods and creating more goods in their country. That became known as import substitution. That process made countries depend heavily on foreign capitals. Capital is money invested in business by foreign countries. Import substitution was very costly, so Latin American countries moved away from that and towards agribusiness. Agribusiness involved cutting down forests to make giant commercial farms. Deforestation was expensive because it involved many expensive machines and many men to cut down enough trees to have space for a large commercial owned farm. One major solution was the liberation theology, where churches helped the poor people by speaking up for them. Many church leaders crusaded for social justice and an end to poverty. The movement made the church become a force for reform.